Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Rabid Dog's House, where we talk about lost or forgotten horror gems. I'm your host, Justin Steele, and tonight we are going to be talking about the 1989/1990 thriller Lisa. Starring Staci Keanan as the title character, Lisa is about a young girl living with her slightly overprotective single mother. Lisa and her best friend Wendy enjoy tracking down the identities of cute guys via their license plates. Unfortunately, Lisa will soon find herself in over her head when she tracks down local serial murderer known as the Candlelight Killer. Directed by Gary Sherman, Lisa is a well-crafted, suspenseful thriller not to be missed. Also starring Cheryl and D.W. Moffett, and joining me tonight is our very special guest, Zena Dixon. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog's House. Thank you, Zena. I'm really excited to talk about Lisa tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm super excited to talk about this movie. I love it so much.
Absolutely. And it really has been a pleasure having you be on these and just getting to know you better, having you get to know me a little bit better. And like at the end of our last episode, we were briefly talking about Lifetime movies. And while Lisa became quite a staple of Lifetime movies, it really was originally for a theatrical release. So Lisa was the way that they designed it with Gary Sherman, the director. It was released in 1989, but if you go online and stuff, you'll see everything that says Lisa 1990. But on the back of my old VHS copy, it says 90 on the VHS, but when you watch the video at the end of the credits, it says 89. So just to clarify for viewers, it was released in 1989 to theaters, but the studio had a better contract for it to be released direct to video. So they kind of made a compromise, whereas, and this is all stuff I learned from the Blu-ray, director Gary Sherman and his DP kind of talked in depth about this, and it was kind of a fascinating history that they had a better contract, the director and the people in the staff, for if it did well theatrically, but MGM had a better thing if they did it direct to video. So they released it in 1989 to a very limited release, but the numbers were insane how well this movie was doing for a late 80s suspense thriller that's not part of some iconic franchise. It made, if you look online, the box office for Lisa is 4 million. And that's just from the one weekend that it was open in about 200 theaters. It wasn't a wide release or anything. So the director and then they contact MGM. They're like, okay, this is the time we got to strike while the iron is hot. People are responding to this movie. We can make a killing. But MGM had a better stake if it was sent direct to video, which obviously is what they did. So they pulled it. So it actually made its money back theatrically, but they pulled it. But yeah, for 200 theaters, about 200 theaters, a $4 million weekend is pretty good. And but that is also, I have mixed feelings about it. I feel bad for them. But like you and I were talking about, we saw it on Lifetime. And this movie is a staple of Lifetime movies. You know, obviously it was released on video, but because MGM had a better deal, that's why we have it as almost this movie of the week. And it really does, straddle the line of like adult thriller, but you can definitely see how Lisa is a Lifetime movie.
Definitely.
But I did just want to clarify that for people. If ever you see, because I wrote it back to the 80s article about it, and I struggled because I was like, well, it's an 80s movie released in the 80s, but everything you see is 1990. But anyway, Zena, Dixon, tell us, how did you come into Lisa?
Oh man. Okay, so originally I actually I rented it. A friend of mine, we would watch movies on the weekends and stuff like that. And I remember, it was my turn to pick. Like, the feeling of being in a video store and you're looking at posters or like the different covers, and the cover where she's on the phone and she's kind of lying upside down, and that red font that just said Lisa, and it's not Lisa Frank. So it's just like, whoa, what is this? So I think I was probably like a sophomore. in high school, and again, it was my turn to pick. My friend, I forgot what she picked previously, but anyway. And I remember we watched it, and it was just like there was some parts that I thought was funny, which we'll get into that. But I just absolutely love this movie, and I was hooked. And then I remember probably like a couple of weeks after that, after I watched it, it aired on Lifetime.
Nice.
So it's like I was able to watch it again. And a friend of mine, I was trying to buy the Blu-ray and DVD because it was available on Amazon at one point, but it was sold out or it was on hold. There was something weird, and then I never went back to it. But I do have another friend where he actually owns it, so I was able to borrow it recently just so I can rewatch it. And rewatching it just brought back all the feels, like it's just one of those movies that's just kind of like you relate to her, especially as a teenager, you understand where she's coming from. So it's like she kind of had to create, some little side kind of life. I think in my sense, I wasn't out there calling, random men or anything like that. But I think for me at the time, this is when like it was like the day and age of AIM, like remember Messenger and stuff like that. So it's like I'm just really surprised that, and I don't know if we spoke about this last time, that no one tried to remake this movie, because I feel like it would be such an awesome movie, because it's like I feel like it has the elements already for it to be something even just out of this world, because something to keep in mind too, because I was reading some reviews and a lot of people, they were saying the same thing. I'm sorry, I'm just going into a whole different world right now.
Keep going. No, I love it. Keep going. I love it.
But a lot of people, they were saying like that they felt that it looked like it was a made for TV movie. And I mean, technically I would think that that was the goal. I know it was in theaters and stuff like that, but it seemed like that's the goal. It seemed like they didn't want to make it grungy. But at the same time, what's weird about it, it still has hints of sleaziness. You know what I mean? Like that slasher sleaze. And it's just like, I feel like it has the potential to be something incredible. I would love to remake this movie. So just in case if anyone's watching, and I'm available, but but yeah, it was, I really just loved it. So that's how I kind of fell into it. And I think I was like so in love with it, but my friend, she wasn't a fan. So.
Gotcha. Well, if I could respond to that, director Gary Sherman, I'm so glad you started the way you did, because I want to make sure I cover this. Director Gary Sherman said he made Lisa with the intent of, because he had done a few different movies like Poltergeist 3, a couple other stuff, and his teenage daughter at this time said, "Hey, Dad, I can't watch any of your movies. I would love to see your movies." So he made Lisa for his teenage daughter. So yes, it does have sort of some sleazy elements, but for the most part, it is rather tamed down.
Right.
Because he wanted to make sure that it got a sort of PG-13-ish rating to ensure that then his daughter, who was about 14 or 15 at the time, could go see this movie. So I think you're absolutely right. It almost does have that intended movie of the week Lifetime feel, because it's not overtly gory. It's not over the top scary. It's definitely suspenseful. I mean, I think it's a really well-crafted movie. Right from the beginning, one thing I love about it is that the identity of the Candlelight Killer.
Right.
They could have gone a different way, and if they ever did remake it, maybe they should. But I really like that it becomes sort of like, who he is right away. So there's only so many inevitable outcomes. So it's like being on a roller coaster, not the scariest roller coaster, but a roller coaster that becomes scary because that one of the track pieces are missing in the roller coaster, and you have to ride it till you get to that point, because it's all going to come to one invariable conclusion. And I think that makes it more suspenseful in a way. A lot of times it's sort of like later movies, the mystery horror movies where you're kind of like the whodunit, early 80s slashers, or after Scream, the resurgence, you had a lot of like, we don't know who the killer is. This one tells you right off the bat, and he is this sort of charismatic guy that you can understand why these teenage girls, who I also like the idea of, like, because he does think his daughter is smart, Gary Sherman, so he made Staci Keanan's Lisa smart. Wendy is smart too. They're clever girls. They clearly have the know-how to like identify these guys, like have a plan. The guys have these license plates. We then find out how to get to their number. But a really strong message, I think, about the film is that no matter how smart you are, you have very intelligent girls, they do dumb things. No matter how smart we are, we all do dumb things at times. And even though it's a harmless prank, it has these sort of repercussions. And ultimately, the bigger message, I like the sort of playing around with like I said, you have those whodunit movies where you're on the phone, you don't know who it is. So it's kind of like she is pranking, but Richard's also pranking her back
Right.
because he wants to do this. And it's even started before that with the answering machine. And again, just touching it on the remake thing that you said, Gary Sherman said that he has wondered why it hasn't been remade yet because he always gets really positive feedback. But I do think that they could still, he said the only thing he watches now is that, yeah, it's outdated with like answering machines and stuff, but voicemail, you could still do quite a bit with the movie now.
Absolutely.
And, I wonder if they would change it in terms of knowing the identity, but I like that you know him right away because everybody then in this movie is clever,
Right.
smart.
Like, what made you watch this movie?
I saw this movie for the first time. Okay. I'm glad you asked. I couldn't tell you a single plot line, but at the time, I loved My Two Dads with Staci Keanan.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
television. So I loved it. I couldn't tell you a single plot line now. I haven't seen it in 30 years, but I loved it. But I also really love Staci Keenan's character Dana on Step by Step. Where she also plays, she's a really smart girl, very serious student, sarcastic. I love her. She's very sarcastic. I love it. But so I think I was probably about 14 or 15. So yeah, around my sophomore year of high school, it was I was staying at my mom's or something, and they did previews for movies that were going to be playing that weekend on Lifetime. And I saw the trailer for this, and I was like, oh, that's Staci Keanan, and she'd always play these sort of bubblegummy type shows, nothing like a horror movie. So I was like, oh, okay, that would be interesting. So that's how I came across it. And then I think I mentioned in one of our other episodes how I had it. There was a video store down the road that ended up closing. So I was able to grab a whole bunch of VHS tapes for like super cheap. I think they were selling them all for like $1. And Lisa was one of them. I love the cover for it too, but my VHS, the cover was so old that like it's that cover where she's like laying back in the red font, but my cover was so like torn up just from being there for however many years that I never really got to see what it looked like until later on I got to see the poster for it, which I do love. I love that concept of her on the bed, on the phone, picture of innocence, but so dark and everything at the same time. But yeah, so then I wore out my VHS copy, and then my best friend Danielle, we have a lot of movies kind of like where you and I will be talking, we're all of a sudden like, wait, have you seen this? And that was one of those for us where she was like, oh, I love Lisa. And I'm like, really? Because I own it on VHS. Let's watch it. And so when I saw the Blu-ray coming out, it had been out for a little while, but I had to get a copy because I showed a friend of mine a year or two ago, and he enjoyed it. But I think because of the VCR quality, I don't think it shouldn't matter, but I think it does sometimes where somebody won't like a movie just because it's so distracting. The different picture quality and etc. But the Blu-ray does look beautiful, and there's decent features. There's an audio commentary by the director, plus an on-camera interview and all that. But that's how I came to it. And like I said, with the performances, Staci Keanan, I think all the performances in the movie are really, really good. Cheryl Ladd, I loved her from. Do you remember Poison Ivy with Drew Barrymore and Sarah?
Yes.
She was the mom in that, so I kind of knew her from that. And it was like the first movie too where she didn't have the '80s like feathered hair, so I was happy for her. But I really liked her in that. And then D.W. Moffett, I didn't realize the guy who plays the Candlelight Killer.
I watched Switched at Birth. I didn't realize it was him until I went back and watched it, and I was just like, oh my God, like what a transformation.
Because he's so straight-laced on that show. He's such a guy's guy, baseball player, cool, But he does do all of them. Everybody, even Tanya Fenmore, who plays Wendy, she didn't do as much after this, but they all really came together for a believable cast. It's not an overly complicated movie. It's very well crafted. You have to have this to happen to this. But I love the moments where like Lisa heard her mom have a conversation, and her mom, Cheryl Ladd's character Catherine says, oh, I talked to this guy who called me at work, and he was like, oh, do you have so many men calling you? And then Lisa uses that to like imitate her mother when she's talking to Richard. And it's this kind of stuff that keeps this sort of snowball effect going. And that's why I love it. I mean, it is a predictable movie, I'd say overall, but it's a fun ride. It's like riding a medium-sized roller coaster. You're not going to scream your head off, but you're going to get the tickle bellies, and you're going to be all excited and going. And And I want to say that one of my favorite sequences in the movie is the whole car when she's in the back seat of the car.
Oh,
No spoilers or anything, but like that scene is so intense and done well. And they did it. So he said, the director said he would not film it if D.W. Moffett, the Candlelight Killer, could see Lisa in the back seat. So they had to do it in a way that he had no idea she was back there. I mean, he knew, but he said he didn't get a sense that she was back there or anything. And I
that's
can believe
awesome.
that scene, but it's a really cool scene, Again, outdated technology with the sort of, what do they call it? The car
Right.
alarm things. But what are some of your favorite moments from the film?
Well, I do like going back with the characters. I love the characters. I feel
Yeah,
like they're not overly, complicated, but I feel like they're realistic.
yeah,
I came from a strict household where it was just like I wasn't allowed to date ever. I'm surprised that I'm married because even
mhm.
looking back on it, so it's just like it's relatable. I feel, and then at the same time, it's just like it's you can tell that Lisa is just a teenager. You know what I mean? It feels real. It doesn't. It feels like it's funny that you say that Gary Sherman wrote it for his or did this for his daughter because I feel that it was like they must have had some type of guidance or whoever wrote it, like it was him and this other woman, Karen Clark. So
Correct. Yep.
they did a great job with right because it's like it felt real. And I remember even watching it when I was a teenager, and it was just like it felt real to me,
Yeah.
because I know that you've seen those movies before where it's just like no one says that stuff. Like,
Very
of course,
stiff, false. Yeah.
yeah, like of course, like it was the late 80s. So it's like, that hey guy, no one says that anymore, which
Sure.
I think that we should bring that back. I want someone to
Hey,
call me,
guy.
yeah, right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right.
So it's like there's that, and then I like you said before, I love that we know who the Candlelight Killer is. Even the name, the Candlelight Killer, it's cheesy, but it works for that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I love the scene. There's two. So I love the scene when well, first I'll go with the one that's at the end, but I won't spoil it. It's basically it's pretty much when Lisa and Richard and the mom, they're all together and someone's used as a weapon, and it's
Yes.
just that was insane, because it's just like she like you said, it's like she was just like playing a game, and it was weird because the stalker was being stalked, and it was just such an interesting like turning
Idea.
point, I want to say, and even idea.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I like just the short scenes that they would even show when Lisa and Wendy when they were at school,
Yeah.
because I don't know if you notice this, but with a lot of even like shows, as an example, it's like when they're at school, it's like their whole lives are wrapped around school. Like it's kind of like think about the original 90210. It was all great when they were in high school, all this stuff is happening, but the second that they graduated, it got kind of boring, you know?
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
like the fact that with this, they were still able to keep our interest,
Hmm.
and I just feel like this is a perfect movie. Like I wouldn't call it a horror movie. I would call it more of a thriller drama.
100% agree. Thriller.
Um, I feel like this is a perfect movie though for people who maybe they want to transition, like they want to watch horror movies, but they're not too sure, or even someone like who enjoys Lifetime movies would really
Yeah.
like this movie.
I'd say, yeah, anybody that wants, because sometimes I want to go see a movie that's predictable. I don't
Mhm.
always need to be surprised or, oh, what a twist I didn't see coming. Sometimes I want to eat vanilla ice cream and it tastes like vanilla ice cream. I don't need anything extra. And going back just the dynamics, you're right. The mother-daughter dynamic is solid. I believe those two
Mhm.
are mother-daughter. When the friends are together, I think like when her and Wendy are just being teenage girls, it's fun to watch because it's
Yeah.
believable, it's relatable. We did prank phone calls when I was that age. Again, nothing as like intense as that, but I can understand it. I see how like one idea when you're that age, you get an idea on something and there's no distractions. Like you're not old enough to drive. She's
Hmm.
not old enough to date. So you have to kind of make your own fun.
Right.
And sometimes if you're that intelligent, you might make dangerous fun. You almost have to like raise the stakes in order to have some sort of stimulation or, some fun. And off topic, going with what you said, 100% agree. Beverly Hills 90210. I just was rewatching the series, and right when I got to the college years, I kind of fell off and stopped. So you're
Yeah,
100% right.
I don't. It always seems to happen. I feel like that happened even with the new one. That happened with, there was another show where they graduated and it just went to, like, it just did not work out.
Unless it's already a college show like
Right.
Felicity or something, you're
Exactly.
right.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't know.
Dawson's
Something
Creek too
happens.
was the same way.
It's like something happens and it just goes downhill. I guess they stop getting creative. I don't know.
Yeah. But overall, I just think like I really liked to. Oh, I guess director Gary Sherman. Without giving away spoilers, I'll try. I might have to edit this a little. He also said that one thing I love about this film is the female dynamic. How it becomes up to these two women to save each other, and in the end, studio execs wanted him to change it that like some random guy would come in to save the day. Like you know how Catherine is dating that guy
Oh,
throughout the
right.
film. And again, you only really see him for that one scene. I do wish they had kind of wrapped that up or given it like some sort of two-scene arc. But the studio was like, well, what about that guy? Can't he come in to help save the day in the end? And the director, Mr. Sherman, was like, no, he can't. Like, this is a story about this mother and daughter. We've set up
Yeah.
this film for this mother and daughter. I think in a way he subconsciously wanted to, if he was going to write a film for his daughter, he wanted her to be inspired by a strong woman.
That's
To have some sort of guy, it would have been such a cop out and
yeah.
such a thing. So I'm really glad that he stuck to his guns. Again, he kind of got screwed in the end by he could have made a lot more money off this. Like again, I think he had a percentage. If the movie did 4 million, he probably got like 1% or 2%, but if it had gone up, in the 20, 30, 40 million range, which with those kind of numbers, it really could have.
Right.
Because it is so simple. And at that time, you got to think we were having part 7, part 8 of all these other franchises. It was something new, again, predictable, but sometimes people just want that. They know, like going into a Lifetime movie, for the most part how things are going to go. I mean, there's always a few twists. They'll take the same sort of archetypes and switch them around a little bit. But you watch those movies because you know that in the end, somehow you're going to feel better. Even if things don't go perfectly or don't go well, um, they're going to be better. But I do like, just also adding on to what you said with the climax, I really loved the climax of this film. I wish if it was remade, I would like it to be extended a little bit.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more of a chase sequence or this or that. But considering the rest of the movie was, going on simplicity, I understand. But it's a fun ride. Was there anything else about Lisa that you want to make sure we talk about?
The music.
Oh, really good music. Yeah.
I really love the music. I love the opening song, which they play it throughout the entire movie and stuff. It just fits it perfectly.
It really does.
Hint of little cheese, but it's just it works.
And when you have the sort of, I think it's like a guitar where it's like when it's like his scene where he'll be like coming in. I can't do it, but you know what I mean. It's because it is this beautiful romantic melody that you're, in the opening scenes, the sort of saxophone-y, almost violin. Again, unlike Scream for Help, appropriate for this film. And but then all of a sudden you have that. So it is sort of the two women have this sort of love theme because it is a mother-daughter love story. But then when he comes in, it's this sharp, like electric guitar almost sound. And you're right. Yes, I 1000% agree. The music is terrific.
Definitely. And then also just like my favorite character, definitely Lisa. I just thought that she was like a sweetheart, like I get it. She's at an age where she's curious and she wants to date and but I know even with her mother, her history with her having her when she at such a young age, so I get it. And what's funny is I think that this was actually the first time that I saw that actually like seeing Staci Keanan. And I thought that she was super cute,
Especially when you see the two of them together, the Candlelight Killer and her, you see how vulnerable and tiny she is because the rest of the movie, she does have a sort of confidence. And her mother, clearly, they said we're seeing sort of the transition of the mother-daughter relationship. But before that, Catherine always treated her like an adult. I mean, this is stuff we learned from Wendy and Lisa. But obviously that instilled a sort of confidence in Lisa. But I do like that, like, what Lisa doesn't understand. One thing that Catherine says that I really, really liked, Lisa says, you always said I would have a say in everything. And the mother's like, well, you are having a say. it doesn't mean you're going to get the outcome that you want, but you are having a say. And that is a very like tricky adult lesson that sometimes is hard to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I am having a say, but it's not going the way I want. And that is a lesson. And I love that. I don't think the film is overly preachy because you do see the pros and cons. Like Catherine is right that there's this dangerous world out there of adulthood, but at the same time, if she had been less overprotected, Lisa might not have been engaging in these activities. But there's no like saying like, well, this is wrong or this is right. It's just saying like you have to better communicate, be more open and honest. But there's no like right or wrong way to do it, but they're doing the best they can. And I
Right.
really like that. Again, it's very much grounded in reality. And I think that that's one of the positive things about Lisa. But yeah, Staci Keanan, terrific job. Like I said, I watched My Two Dads because of her. That's why I started watching Step by Step back. I mean, and this is very early '90s we're talking, but I thought there was something special. But she's grown up to be. She's not really in the acting business anymore. She's an attorney now, I believe, and I think that's pretty
Wow.
cool. Oh yeah, she a child actress that became a teen actress, and I think she kind of she may have popped into one or two things in the mid 2000s, but yeah, as far as I know, because her full name is like Anastasia Love Keanan, and so I'm pretty sure she goes by that as her attorney name now, so that's why you can't like find her as easily.
Oh.
But I think that's pretty cool that this really was not just like playing an intelligent young woman. She really is an intelligent young woman, and decided to follow her, didn't go in the pressures of Hollywood, decided, you know what, I'm more passionate about this. Because I think she could have very well had a career as an adult, I think she would have transitioned, but yeah, overall, I highly recommend Lisa. Again, it's the kind of movie, a thriller, popcorn movie. You know how it's pretty much all going to go, but you'll still enjoy the ride.
Yes.
All the sequences, though, like in the restaurant, there's a lot of like this film is well crafted, but it's based on a lot of scenarios, like moments of tension, like one moment Lisa's in the backseat of the candlelight killer's car, the next minute they're in a restaurant. It's kind of like what's going to happen, who's going to do what. So you're always going to be curious or intrigued. I don't know. Again, I've watched it many times. I don't know if everybody's going to go back and watch it again and again, but it is one of those movies. It's comfort. It's fun.
Absolutely. I'm probably want to see if I can watch it tonight because I just feel like honestly I need that right now. So
absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog's House. What are some of your favorite Lifetime suspense movies or comfort movies? Thanks again, Zena, for joining me. You can find Zena over at Wicked Horror, Dread Central, or RealQueenOfHorror.com. And again, I'm your host, Justin Steele. You can find me over at Wicked Horror, 411 Pop Culture, or on Twitter at Wicked Horror Justin. Seriously, Zena, thank you so much for joining me. I had a pleasure talking about Lisa with you.
Thank you so much for having me. We're just connecting. So.
Absolutely. And everyone, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. D.W. Moffett, I didn't realize the guy who plays the Candlelight Killer, he's...
Oh, no. No!
What just happened?
Oh, my God, it's just...
Oh.
Okay, you didn't hear me screaming no, right?
I did hear you saying no, but everything was fine on my end, so I'm like, oh... You haven't seen the show, okay?
Oh, I have. No, I have. I'm sorry.
For sure. I was just like, have you ever seen Switch by Birth? No! I was like, oh, it's either she loves it or hates it.
No, I actually have.
Hey, guy.
Yeah.
It is.